In this video I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot and repair the electronic shift on the fly of the Ford F-Series trucks. My name's How To Bob, and this is what my dashboard looks like. I have four-wheel drive on, but yet I do not have four-wheel drive. And here's one way that I can test it. I'm going to turn it on to vent, turn my cooling system on to vent, and I put these tassels in here just to show you that it is blowing, and I can shift it back over to defrost, and you'll see that it works. Well, I'm going to go back to the vents, and when it shifts over to vent, I'm then going to shift into four-wheel drive. I'll just turn my electronic shift on the fly over here to four-wheel drive, and you'll see that gradually it works its way back up to the default setting, which is defrost. This does one thing. It tells me that the vacuum system, which actuates the vents and or the four-wheel drive hubs, has a leak in it or is not activating. As you can see where my setting is, it's on vent. It should be blowing out at my face here. I'm going to switch it back to two-wheel drive and allow the vacuum pump time enough to switch the venting system over, and it will switch back to the face level of the vent. This tells me one of a few things that I can look for. I could have a vacuum hose that's disconnected, or a vacuum hose that is worn out or disintegrated, which just need to be replaced. It could be a relay, or it could be the vacuum pump. It could be a number of things. We'll go through those step by step in this video, and you can see it's back on vent in two-wheel drive. So we're going to start out under the hood on the driver's side, and you'll see this little box here right next to the battery. Inside that box there are two, let me get this lid off here, there are two, you can see two relays here, and you can have the vehicle in the on position and simply turn it from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, and you'll hear these click. If they click, that means they're good. I just pulled these out to show you how easy they are removed, and they simply plug in. There are the identical same relays, so I'll go ahead and put those back in. Mine are good. I check them just by turning it from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, and they click, telling the vehicle to switch to four-wheel drive. So I'll put that back in, and I know that those are good now. Next thing I'm going to do is check underneath, and I want to do this on both sides, underneath my tire in the wheel well area here. I'm going to check for vacuum. You'll need to get a vacuum pump or a vacuum gauge, and I'm going to pull this hose apart here. This hose goes on the left hand side here to the vacuum pump, and on the right hand side where I just pull it off here, that goes to the hub. And what I'm going to do is draw a vacuum on the hub and let it sit for a few minutes just to see if it has any leaks or anything, so I can eliminate the hub from any issues that I'm having. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a vacuum on the hub. Now you don't want to draw too much of a vacuum, cause any issues. Just a little bit. Doesn't take much to kick the hubs into four-wheel drive, and I'll let it sit here for a few minutes and make sure that it doesn't leak out so that I don't have any issues there. Okay, now that I've established that the hub will hold a vacuum, I've eliminated that from our problem, so I'm going to check the vacuum on the whole system, and I want to do this on both sides. You want to do both hubs, and you can check the vacuum on both sides. So I'm going to hook this up to the opposite side, the tube on the opposite side, and once I get that hooked up, I'm going to go in and turn the vehicle to the on position and switch it over to four-wheel drive. Now once you can hear the vacuum pump running, and as you can see, the gauge is not moving, so there's an issue from here back up to the vacuum pump, and that it's not holding a vacuum or not creating a vacuum. So I'm going to go up to that area, and that is on the passenger side. As you can see right here, this area here, this is the vacuum reservoir, and here we have the vacuum pump that creates the vacuum. So I'm going to test up here by taking my vacuum gauge, and this piece here is my pulse vacuum hublock. So I'm going to disconnect this part right here, and I will check from here down by drawing a vacuum. I simply pull these pieces apart here and they're on pretty tight, so that's a good sign that they're getting a good connection. I just take my vacuum pump / gauge and hook that up. Now if you don't have a vacuum gauge or vacuum pump like I have here, I believe you can get those at any auto parts store. You can even rent them or lease them from some of the auto parts stores if you don't have one. And by doing that, you can hear I'm drawing a vacuum. It's going to click the hubs and lock the hubs in just like as if it was working correctly. So I've got a good vacuum all the way from that part all the way down to the hub. So I'm going to sit here and see how long it holds a vacuum, and as you can see, this is about 5 minutes later and it's doing a good job. So I'm going to take this pulse vacuum hublock, the PVH, off, because I believe somewhere in here is my issue, because I'm getting a vacuum, my vacuum pump's working, I've checked all the tubes. I'm going to go ahead and take this thing off and get a replacement, because I believe that's where the problem is, my PVH solenoid. And I'm going to take a 10mm socket here and just remove the 2 bolts. Very easy. Now I found one of these PVH solenoids online. I went to the dealer wanted $85, the auto parts store wanted $65 for an aftermarket, and I ended up going online to an online dealer and getting it for $58 for an original Ford part. So if you look around online, you can come up with a good price on a brand new factory brand pulse vacuum hublock solenoid. So just take these 2 bolts out here, and you can see the connections on this are very basic. There's just a little plug here, and here's my new one. You can see it's a genuine Ford part. Got a great deal on that. I'm going to go ahead and take that out. It looks identical to the last one, thankfully. And you can see again, small, simple hookups here. You got 2 vacuum hoses and an electrical connection. Go ahead and put that back on with my 10mm socket. And once I get that all tightened up, I'm going to go ahead and plug in the hoses, and then I'll plug in the electrical connector. After I get this all connected, I'm going to go ahead and run some more tests to see how it acts now. So I'll turn the vehicle to the on position, I'll turn it to vent, and last time I did this test, when I switched it to 4-wheel drive, it automatically went to defrost, which is, again, the default position. As you can see now, we're holding a good vacuum, and it still stays on the vent part. So the vacuum is working on this. This is one little test that I can do to verify that it's working. So I can switch it back to defrost. As you can see, it changes right back over. Now let's go down to the hub again, and I'm going to test the vacuum here by pulling apart the hose. Just pulled this little fitting out here, and I'm going to take my vacuum gauge and plug it into the system. Once I get that plugged in, I'm then going to go back into the cab and turn the vehicle to the on position and switch it over to 4-wheel drive. You can hear the pump running, and you see that the gauge goes up. So I'd say this repair was a success. This is How To Bob. Thanks for watching.